Thank you for joining us in another episode of A Closer Look. I'm Donna Giroux, the ED at CATV, and with me today is the Executive Director at the Montshire Museum of Science, Marcos Staffney. Thank you for coming, Marcos.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
I guess I can't say coming, I have to say joining us because we're remote.
We're all here in a virtual room somewhere. Yes, we live in the Matrix now.
It's true. It's true, especially since you run a science museum. I imagine you think in those terms, right?
Right.
So I've been concerned about the Montshire because normally around now you're having yeah, right. Normally you're having this delightful annual fundraiser. It's usually a big shindig, the Fiddlehead.
Yes, the Fiddlehead Fling. So normally on the first Friday of every May, we have the Fiddlehead Fling benefit auction, which goes to support our science education programs at the museum. It's a phenomenal community-wide celebration that also sort of launches as a kickoff to the spring season, or we'll say the end of mud season, though by our weather this week, we're not quite there yet. But it is something that usually brings 300 people together inside the museum for a really festive and fun event. And unfortunately, we're not going to be hosting that this year. And what we're doing instead is sending out appeal for people to help support our educational programs. We've had a lot of amazing sponsors and supporters who have stuck with us through this, knowing that there is no determined sort of date out into the future in which we can, redo this particular program or this particular event. But we'll be sending out some more information about how people could donate to what we normally call a funded need campaign within the auction, which normally goes to a very specific need. And this year, that need goes to our Resilience and Recovery Fund, which is a fund that we set up very shortly after we had to close the museum on March 14th. We've been closed since that day. We closed the evening of March 13th and have not been open since. And the Resilience and Recovery Fund goes to helping support both the educational programs that we are doing and working on while the actual facility is closed, but also helping to support the institution, knowing that we're not getting admissions coming through the door.
So you were saying you're launching in the beginning of May. What exactly, can you tell us about your launch?
Currently, we're just going to be doing some more messaging and thanking really people on May 1st, just because that was the original date of the fundraiser, which is normally an auction. We're launching on April 30th, the day right before that, or really just sort of publicly announcing a formalized relationship that the 4 major science museums in the state of Vermont have put together called For Science VT. And this is a partnership between ECHO, the Leahy Center for the Study of Lake Champlain, the Fairbanks Planetarium and Museum, the Fairbanks Museum and Planetarium, and the Vermont Institute of Natural Sciences, or VINS. So the 4 of us have been meeting regularly since before the pandemic really shuttered all institutions, all non-essential work. I've been meeting with each of the executive directors probably on a 2 times a week basis just to discuss and see what are we doing, how are we laying a path out for Vermonters and, for VINS and us, Montshire, really thinking about our bi-state service group. So together we have this panoply of educational programming that's going out because we know right now when school is out, people are really doing, or families and teachers are somewhat doing the bare bones of work that they can do. It's, not ideal, and STEM is definitely one of the things that's feasibly getting left behind. And so we're trying to pick this up and offer an additional hour or 2 of support a day between all of our institutions.
Where you said you've created a website that's a collaborative website for teachers and possibly parents to go. What's the website?
For Science VT, for spelled out FOUR, sciencevt.org.
So anyone can go on that and look at, so if there's something that's live streamed, but somebody could watch it later. Because I know your YouTube channel is just blowing up with science videos, and I watched a few because it's fun.
Yes. So this is serving as a portal, and then once you get to our individual websites, each one of us has a new basically online portal page within our own websites. So for us, you go to Montshire at Home. You click on online resources, and then it shows you per week what we're doing. If you go to almost all of our organizations now are promoting this on the front page of our websites to get to it. We all access our information a bit differently, and we also are producing varied channels on which that information is going out. So also on that For Science VT is a way to get to each one of our Instagrams and Facebooks and Twitters and YouTubes, depending on how we're disseminating that information.
That's super. So now we can all dive deeper. Whether we're young or old, we can always learn and relearn about nature and density and bubbles.
Oh, yeah.
So you were going to tell me, though, so that's sort of what's going on in education. I am curious, though, there's so much going on. I'm assuming that your educators know what the basic curriculum at each age group is. So you don't really need to collaborate with teachers up front. You know the curricula and just create videos that go with it, or do you have a close collaboration with any specific schools?
Oh, so I should be very specific. We work with multiple grade ranges, pre-K, specifically through 8th grade, and a lot of our work in school is often with middle school and upper elementary. We have targeted to family audiences, which we know are kids 8 and younger. And so these are very, for the Montshire, very realistic things that you can do as a parent with everyday found items in your house. Because the thing that we know best is how to make science engaging, how to make it fun. We even as staff work together as to do some of these science projects on our own time. So for example, last week we worked on cardboard creations, where we were learning all about the wonders of cardboard, and as part of cardboard engineering, or really understanding how to build and construct. So one of the design challenges for the week was build your own cardboard hat, or a wearable from the maker community. And so I happen to have mine. Let's cover a little bit in cat hair. My own cardboard hat that I made.
Very natty. I love it.
Complete with gaff tape, a hat band representing my Panamanian heritage, with a Panama hat. So, but just seeing how one creates something like this, and as a staff, many of us got together to do that, and it helps to promote what we would call community-wide engagement in these science topics. So we've had a couple of these challenges where we ask people who are participating to send back what they've been making, or progress on their seeds that they're growing, or showing their own bubble wands that they've made, and send that back to us. We had a great photo of someone who created their own sort of bubble laboratory in their house, but basically had to lay down tarps everywhere so that their kid wouldn't destroy the home with soapy water. So it's a way for us to engage with the community as well.
That's great. You guys must be super busy. So still paying all those salaries.
Yeah.
Without admissions. So this is exciting. I am a little sad that your trails are not open. Are people sneaking on the trails anyway?
So our trails are private property. They're not public, which means that we're liable for our trails and for the upkeep of our trails. And unlike some trails that you might encounter in Vermont, which are just all wooded, you might come across a stone cascade, or a set of steps, or things that you could trip on when there isn't a large group of staff who are there present on site all the time. Our building is a living thing, so we have a pallet boiler. We have to change out the waste from on a regular basis. We have people on site tending to our living animals, but it's very minimal, so we can't actually be out on our facility or our property making sure that people are doing well. In a reopening plan, which we hope will happen in a few months, we'll say few,
Yeah.
that, we are going to really rely heavily on our outdoor property and, the excitement and engagement that it can bring.
And usually in the summer, you have very vibrant summer camps, and the CATV has summer camps as well. And we're really, the whole reopening plan, we're a little stumped. Like how do you have children socially distance, and what do you do to encourage camps? Are you feeling brave? Are you going to try to open a summer program?
We're going to say no comment on that right now because we're still watching and learning. I think that there's so many moving parts to doing this. We have really started to think hard about what does a digital summer camp look like, knowing that school will probably not be in that same level of engagement over the summertime. So right now our thinking has to be sort of both at the same time and heavily weighted to like, what does a digital summer camp look like? We haven't made that call yet as of this moment about having to not have those camps, but it's something, of course, is in our mind, as is everybody in the entire museum and camp industry right now. Socially distancing kids is, that I think is something people aren't talking about a lot, which is right now kids are not the ones who are the most experienced with what social distancing means. If you go to any of our local grocery stores, and you see giant cars filled, like in the parking lot, like, oh my gosh, it's going to be so crowded, but it's just one person per car, right? That's now going grocery shopping. It's just a bunch of adults in there. There's not tons of kids running around the grocery stores. And they're just not getting the practice of like, what does it mean to socially distance? I can say that when I walk around White River Junction, I see a family coming towards me, that, all of a sudden, everybody get back in, the parent stress that's happening right now with, their kids when they're doing their daily walk, and trying to wrangle them in on their bikes. And it's just harder. So we're all going to go through that together and figure that out. What does that mean when we get back out there in the world, trying to do some of the things that we normally do?
Yeah, we have great difficulty trying to figure out how do we do this. Part of summer is the kids want to be out and about. Our camps always include running around and playing games, and that's challenging. Are we going to do it? So if you figure out the solution for digital camp, right, just give me a call, because we haven't figured out how to do that yet.
It's hard, right, Donna? Like if you're developing like something that is meant to be hands-on and something that's meant to be interactive, just saying like, I'm going to switch it to digital, it's a sinking feeling, because we know that that's not what summer's about, right? That we know that that's not what you or I would consider a high quality, summer experience, but it is something, and it is something that we have to start thinking about in this set of 18 months. What is it that we can provide that is going to give some type of mental stimulation and, elevated or positive or hopeful experience that kids can get right now?
Yeah, luckily we have our camps in the beginning of August as opposed to July, so we'll stall even further. Anyway, so this is exciting. You have lots of videos to look at. You have a portal and a collaboration with other science centers in Vermont. Are you considering doing the same with New Hampshire, or since you're on the edge, or is it just a Vermont collaboration and that's as far as you're going to go?
I think we're a part of so many learning networks. Being a part of the Upper Valley, of course, we're very tapped into what else is happening, of course, on both sides of the river with other nonprofits and culturals. In terms of working with science centers out in New Hampshire, they're a little further afield. There's, of course, the Cullis Shepherd Planetarium. There's the Sea Science Center all the way on the seacoast. And we work with them on other types of, like the Montshire specifically works with them on other types of collaborative projects that we've got going. So the network there is, exists. Sorry, as my animal is clawing at my feet right now.
Whenever I'm interviewing, I have a standard poodle who's over there just clicking, making noise to try to get my attention. It's funny.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Oreo coming in from the background right there. Hey, look. Oh, look.
Hey, Oreo. So is there anything else you wanted to share with the community right now about COVID this time? What else you might be doing, what you want to say to the community, how you see the future, anything?
Well, first I'd say the whole staff of the Montshire is doing well. We're meeting on a regular basis. We're continuously getting charged to help deliver high quality STEM content, and we miss our daily interactions with visitors. Like that is something that is killing all of us right now. We are so sad to not be at the museum right now having these great experiences. With regard to safety, of course, like we want everyone to follow the best protocols for social distancing, washing their hands and hygiene, and also following the CDC guidelines and the governor's orders, to the letter, so that, we can make sure that we all get through this in a safe way. One is, speaking of sort of interstate collaboration between the two that you asked about, we are partnering. We have a program that we call Health Research Live, which is something that we normally do in the museum. And it's a special program that is in collaboration with Dartmouth Synergy, which is a research group at Dartmouth that looks at translational science. How do we get science and research that's happening in very sort of private world sectors out into the public, and get the public infusing researchers with really great input. And the Norris Cotton Cancer Society. So our collaboration with both Geisel and the Dartmouth Hitchcock puts together these particular programs that look at public health. And in the past, we've looked at things like vaping or adverse childhood experiences. And so last week, we hosted our first one on information or misinformation about COVID-19. How does one filter that information? So we had some specialists to talk about how to filter in or not information. And the way that we construct these is that there's a sort of 20 minutes of expert panelist discussion, and then we break out into Zoom rooms. So Zoom has a feature where you can have smaller groups. So people amongst themselves talk, not necessarily with experts, about the content that had happened. And then we all join back together for a larger group conversation. We're going to have one next week on May 7th about clinical trials in COVID-19. So real research about treatment methods in COVID-19 that is happening here in the Upper Valley at the hospital. So we'll have 2 infectious disease doctors plus someone who has been personally affected with COVID-19 here, in a virtual space, talking with the public about that. We are going to record part of that one. Often we don't record any of these conversations because there's so much private group conversation, but we will be recording the talks, the talking parts and the question and answer parts. So I'll be sure to let you know and forward that information out.
Yeah, Marcos, we are hungry for local content, and we're all about sharing and creating community through sharing. So we would love to have access to a file.
Yeah, and one other good thing, the Hanover Garden Club, which I know has been a perennial CATV favorite, we're going to be hosting their meeting through our Zoom technology next week as well, and we'll record that speaker. So we are sort of reaching back out now that we've been through this a couple of weeks to the different types of community groups who use the Montshire as a hub to help support and lift them up so that they can still get their messaging about science out there in this world.
That's great. And Oreo did make it up the stairs.
He did, yeah. He's acting up. He's like, you, Dad, you're talking on the TV thing again too much. So
that's it. He's adorable. So I'm glad you talked to us about that. So if we go onto the homepage of your website, there's information about the next
Health Research Live
COVID research Zoom group.
It's right on our program calendar. So anytime we have one of these live community-based programs, it goes right onto the program calendar, like you would find a live program happening at the museum.
Okay.
And That's where we also list our weekly thematic challenges and our weekly themes as well as through our program calendar.
And if you've always had a series of interesting lectures or events surrounding something each year. I know you did one with, let's see, the anniversary of the Shelley book Frankenstein. Those were a very interesting series. And before that, what was the one before that? It was
music in the brain. And last year we did space. And this year we
of course
chose to do health research as that topic. So we spread that out over the year instead of doing a consolidated month. And so we had planned to do one on adverse childhood experiences and then another one on marijuana and adolescence in March. And unfortunately that got canceled because we had to close. And we shifted gears very quickly to research happening around COVID-19 because I think that is the pressing public health priority right now and science priority.
It is, absolutely. And I think Oreo agrees. So you can see him in the back of you. So thank you so much for sharing time with us. I know you've been super busy. Some of the nonprofits have been going crazy trying to respond to their communities. And it sounds like you guys are doing a stellar job. The only thing you're missing is to share those files with me so that I can put them on our video on demand system. But I'll wait till after the pandemic has subsided because we're in it for the long haul. We want to make sure that we have your files to share just in case YouTube disappears.
Okay.
Did I really say that? Well, it's a independent organization. So farewell, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Marcos. And I hope everyone stays in touch with the Montshire Museum of Science. Bye-bye.